Blessings, beloveds, blessings, blessings. Listen, really quick. I just wanted to make an updated video about covenants. I made a video maybe a couple of, maybe a month ago. I don't know how long it's been. I made a video explaining this is the time that this is your time, what you need to be doing while you're waiting on your kingdom spouse. What is your assignment in this moment? And I got a comment that asked me, what is a covenant? And so I wanted to explain what a covenant is. A covenant is anything that you come in agreement with. A covenant is anything that you have agreed upon with you or something else that you have come into agreement with. And so a lot of times we have covenants with unhealthy things. We have come into agreement with demonic entities. We have come into agreement with things that are not ordained, that are not called from God in our lives. And so, when we come into agreement with ungodly covenants, things that are not ordained from God, things that God has not called us to, it tends to delay the thing that God has for us. It tends to cause a setback and a delay for us to actually walk into what God has for us because we have come into agreement with the wrong thing, because we have come into covenant with the wrong thing. And so we have to be very mindful, very careful of what we come into agreement with, of what we allow to come into agreement with, because a lot of times what we're agreeing to is not what God has for us. What we agreeing to is not healthy for us. What we are agreeing to is not good for us. So we have to be very mindful, very careful. And so in the other video, I said, as you were interceding for your kingdom spouse, you want to break off covenants. And what I mean by that is you or your kingdom spouse may have come into agreement with something that is not ordained, that is not what God has called. And so you want to break that covenant. You want to go into the spiritual realm and deal with that covenant. And you want to deal with it. You want to deal with it. Whatever God has not ordained, whatever God has not orchestrated, you want to break the bonds. You want to break the agreement off, because as long as you're in agreement with something that is not intended for you, what God has not intended for you, you are going to delay a process, because a covenant, God honors covenant. He honors relationship. He honors marriage. Marriage is a covenant between what God has ordained to come together. So you want to be very mindful of covenant, to coming into agreement with things that is not orchestrated, that is not ordained by God. And so you want to deal with those covenants, those old covenants that you have come into agreement with, that it was demonic altars, things that was not old relationships, things that you wasn't supposed to be in, but you was in them anyway. You know how we get into relationships, and we get into relationships that's just not for us. We get into relationships that God has not orchestrated, that God has not planned for us. And so while we're in those relationships, they are covenants because we have come into agreement with it. And so even though you leave those relationships, there's still attachment there. There's still soul tie there. And so you want to break those things off. You cannot move in the things that God has called you to move in and walk in, and when you're tied to something else. You cannot, just like in the word where the woman was at the well, and God said, well, you already have such and so husbands. That's because she was in agreement with other relationships. So God, you got all these husbands already, and so you have to be very mindful of the things that you're coming into agreement with. You have to be very mindful of the things that you say yes to, because you're coming into agreement with it, which what you are doing is making a covenant with that thing. And so you want to break that off. you want to go into the spirit, everything is spiritual. The spirit realm is very, very heavy. It's actually what we're living in. It's very heavy. So you want to deal with spiritual things. You cannot deal with earthly things before you deal with spiritually things. You actually have to deal with spiritually things and deal with earthly things. And so I wanted to kind of give more in depth of what I mean when I say break old covenants, meaning come out of agreement with things that is no longer serves you. Come out of agreement with things that God has not ordained for your life. Come out of agreement with things that does not align with the purposes and the plans that God has for you. And it's an easy thing to do. You just go and you pray. You first you want to start off with a heart of thanksgiving, thanking God, and then you want to begin to repent for anything that you have said, done that was displeasing to God. And then you want to petition the courts of heaven. I come out of agreement with anything that I have knowingly or unknowingly come into agreement with. Anything that my kingdom spouse, anything that they have come into agreement with that is not of God. God, I pray right now that every covenant is broken, that is not of you, oh Lord, and you begin to show my kingdom spouse what it is that they have bound themselves to that is not of you. Okay, so you want to do that, and you want to continue to do that. You can't just do it one time and think that it's all said and done. You can't just do it twice and think that it's all said and done. It's gonna have to be a continuous thing, because we have so many covenants that we have come into agreement with that we don't know that we have come into agreement with. I hope that this helped you. I hope that this explanation kind of helped you a little bit. I'll try to make sure that I be more consistent in my videos, farther going forth. And sorry that this video was delayed. I said that I was going to make this video maybe a couple of weeks ago, but I had a tragedy, a death in my family, and then I had a breast cancer scare, and so I've been dealing with a lot of things. But and so I'm here and I'm back, and forgive me for just having to go deal with things. I'm still human, though I am a woman of God and just trying to nourish His people. I still face things as well. So be patient with me, and I hope that I hope that this information kind of helped you a little bit. If you want to send your prayer requests, I am now accepting prayer requests. The email is in my bio. Send your prayer requests. I will definitely lay at the foot of God for you, and whatever it is that you need God to do for you, I stand into agreement with you. And so make sure you send your prayer requests as we petition the courts of heaven for the things that you are desiring God for, and not only for what you are desiring God for, but what God has for over your life. I love you all with the love of the Lord. Make sure you're liking, make sure you're subscribing, make sure you're interacting with me, and let's build this kingdom together. I love you all with the love of the Lord.